Good afternoon, everybody. It is 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I should say good afternoon, good morning, good whatever it is, wherever you may be today watching this. I hope you're having a great day. I am. It's a wonderful Sunday. So a few things to know. This is all about mentalism. Now, a lot of people don't know what mentalism is, so that's what I'm going to do. We are calling this Greg Raven's, or actually it's going to be called, Yeah, I Know I'm Late. Thank you. Um, this is called Let's Get Mental with Greg Raven. So today's topic is an introduction to mentalism. So we're going to be talking about how mentalism got its start. What is mentalism? A lot of people don't know. So let's start with the basic. Now, there are different kinds of mentalism. Now, the thing is that there is also a behavioral type of mentalism that actually deals directly with psychology. That is not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is pure and simple entertainment. Nothing more, nothing less. It's a lot of fun. So there is no such thing as magic. Sorry, spoiler alert. I can't actually pluck something out of thin air and make it actually appear. Now, what I can do is I can use sleight of hand. I can use conjuring techniques. I can use different ways to make it appear that I've actually plucked something out of the air. But there is no actual magic. Now, there are conjurers, which is basically an actor playing the part of a magician, who make it look real. In that train of thought, there's no such thing as an actual mind reader. Now, what I can't do, what we do, is we're actors playing the part of a mind reader. That's what a mentalist is. So what does that mean? Well, we use psychology, we use conjuring techniques, magic techniques, we use acting, we use psychology and showmanship. Basically, that's what it comes down to. We use sleight of hand. We use a lot of the same tools that a magician will use. We'll just use it in a slightly different way. So, one of the nice things about mentalism is that it really got its start way, 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 way back. And we have frauds, phonies, fakes, and gypsies to thank for this. Because, well, let's take it back a step. What if I told you that I could read your mind? Don't call me Morpheus. I'm just saying, what if I said right now that I could read your mind right now? Is that something you'd be interested in? Is that something you'd be wanting to learn, or at the very least see? Well, that's what I do. I make it look like I can actually pluck a thought out of your brain. And thought is the key word there. It's not just anything. It's not just, what am I thinking right now? No, it's got to be a single, isolated thought, an idea. Read your mind. Yes, well, then that's something we will explore during the course of this. Today is just the introduction. That's all this is. And I do have one small effect that I will be doing a little later on. And I hope you can be around for that. If not, you can certainly watch this later. But one of the things about this is that we are going to be talking about the introduction. So how did this come about? Well, way, way, way back when, there were frauds, phonies, fakes, who would claim to be, fortune tellers, mediums, people who said that they could actually talk to the dead. Well, now, the problem is that getting them to talk back is the problem. You can talk to the dead all day long. Getting them to respond, well, that's another story altogether. Now, the guy who got me into all this was James Randi, the amazing Randi. And he was an escape artist by trade, but then he started, later in life, he got into mentalism. And he was actually the one who told me that I should get into this. And I said, well, how did all this come about? I did research on this, and he actually taught me some great stories about how this all came about. And what they would do is they would say, I want you to write a question down on a piece of paper, a little small piece of paper, like 2 by 3. And they would write down a question. And then they would fold it up, and then the medium would take it and burn it on the candle in front of them. And as the smoke would rise, they'd be able to tell exactly what the question was. And by that token, they could try to extrapolate an answer of some degree. Now, was it fair? No, not even close. The term billet or billet means tiny letter in French. And it's actually, and that's what that little piece of paper is. It's what we call it a billet now. And in that respect, that's actually a tool that mentalists use all the time now. Now, going back to those frauds and fakes, what happened was Houdini. Yes, the Houdini. Now, first, a quick thing about Houdini. Now, Houdini was a wonderful man. He's Austrian born, and he came to this country, and he was, I believe it was Appleton, Wisconsin he was in. And he was there, and his father was a rabbi, and his real name was Eric Weiss, Weiss, if I recall. Now, and Eric was a huge fan of the famous magician at the time, Robert Houdin, who was a French magician. And he became Houdini, Harry Houdini. How did he come up with Harry? Well, he was a hairy guy. He had no, he wasn't. People had a hard time. They for short, his classmates called him Airy for Eric, and it was Airy, and it turned into Harry. So. And that was the whole thing. And this is actually important. And you're going, why? Why is this important? Here's why. When he was very, very close to his mother, and when he lost his mother, every psychic medium in the world would seek him out. And they said, Mr. Houdini, we can contact your mother from beyond. And he's like, really? And they're like, yes, absolutely. She's trying to contact you. I can make that happen. Come see me. Okay. And he came and saw them. And first of all, they had a code word that they used all the time. And not a single one could produce that code word. And second of all, they said, okay, I'm getting this. I'm feeling this. She's here with us. Okay, great. What does she say? What does she say? She says, "Hello, Harry." Well, as I said, they were Austrian, or was it Austrian or Hungarian? I can't recall off the top of my head now. But anyway, they were immigrants. She never spoke a word of English her whole life. And she certainly wouldn't have called him Harry. So he began to take them down publicly. There were several people who he did not get along with. He made several enemies, and when he was older, in his later years, he actually started doing shows, a 3-part show. First part was a traditional magic show, and he enjoyed doing that. And then the second part was a seance as such, and he would display how it would look to do an actual seance. And these miraculous, strange, wonderful things would happen. And then the third part of the act is he would show exactly how he did all the seance stuff. So in that vein, the James the Amazing Randi took up that quest, that cause, as it were. And he actually started doing the exact same thing. So he actually had a $1 million challenge to that he said he could prove. Well, actually, it was a challenge, and if you could prove beyond a shadow of a doubt under scientific protocols that you actually had paranormal ability, he would award you the $1 million challenge. Never gave away a red penny. Nothing. Anything at all. So, how does this all tie in with mentalism? So those frauds, those fakes actually started to pave the way. We started getting into billet reading and things of that nature, and using the magical techniques that Houdini mastered and made popular at that time, and got into mentalism. And there's some wonderful, wonderful, and am I an expert when it comes to the history? No, I'm not. I know a lot, but I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination. I'm no anthropologist or anything like that. I'm not a historian. I'm a purist. I love mentalism. It is my passion. It is what I do. It is my profession. I absolutely love it. That being said, how does this come into play? Well, let me just back up just for a second with mentalism. Let me show you something. Now I have, grab my marker here. I'm going to show you something. Now, Julian, I know you're watching right now, okay? And I'm going to have you do something for me, okay? I'm going to take out my business card, and I'm going to write, let's do it this way. Let's see. Yeah, we'll just do it that way. See, I've got green on here, so it looks obnoxious. So I'm just trying to do it the right way. So I will write down. Okay. Okay, wonderful. Now, Julian, like I said, I just wrote down a 3-digit number on the back of this. Julian, name any 3-digit number. Or at least type it. I'm hoping he's still on here. Because if he doesn't, this isn't going to work. $247. Okay. Now you could have chosen any 3 digits that you wanted to. You chose 247. Here's the crazy part. I want you to see. I wrote 247. Now, if you would have chosen anything else, any different number, I would have been wrong. Now, more accurately, now you know what I do for a living. You know that this is what I do. But if you had not known that, and I had done this out of the blue, you probably would have thought that I was the real deal, that I could actually predict what you did in the future. Can you see how that would be enticing to some people as a layperson who never saw anything like that? They would be inclined to see this person say, "Oh my gosh, he knows the future. He's the real deal." Well, now you can see why what I do became so popular. So let's back that up a little bit. Now, I'm not going to explain how that trick worked right away. What? I'm glad you enjoyed it, Julian. But that being said, what is mentalism? So, as I said before, it's basically a nice little combination of psychology, conjuring techniques, acting, showmanship, a lot of different things all rolled into one to make it look that way. We are actors playing the part of a mind reader. Now, there are many techniques that will be used, and we will discuss them at length over the course of as I do this. There are double writing techniques, there are one ahead methods, there are card tricks, there are mentalism. I once had a magician friend, an associate, I'll say an associate. He's not really a friend. But I had somebody tell me that you can make anything into a mentalism effect. To which I kind of scoffed and said, well, so really if I pull out a fire wallet, that's a mentalism, you can make that into a mentalism effect? No, not really. I mean, you technically probably could if you really thought about it. You could say that you have psychokinesis or something along those lines. I suppose you could probably make that into one. If I was going to do the floating cane, the dancing cane routine, the sponge balls, things like that, could I really make that into a mental effect? If you really, 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 really stretched it, yeah, you probably could. Would you? Not likely. But a lot of what I do is just, I love using book tests. I love using, I do a book test, just so you know, is basically if somebody is standing on the other side of the room and I'm over on this side of the room and they look at a page and I can tell them what word they're looking at. Things like that. That's what I do. There are lots of different ways around that. So there's a lot of mind reading, a lot of prediction. I bend silverware, and I make that into an actual mental effect because it looks pretty convincing. There's a lot of things along those lines that really come into play. So that being said, I'm going to continue, but if anybody has any questions, please, please, please put them in the chat and I will answer them, I promise. Don't ask how that one was done, please, because of the fact that there are multiple ways. I'm not going to go through every single trick today. I'm not going to go through method today. This is just kind of an introduction because a lot of people, so when you say that, that there's, I'm a mentalist, most people look at me like you're like a dog trying to understand geometry. So I get it. Most people, you say, oh, I'm a mentalist. And they go, oh, just like the show. I love that show. Simon Baker is amazing. Truthfully, the technical advisor on that show was an actual mentalist. His name is Luke Germain, and he's out of the UK. Wonderful, wonderful human being. I want to get him on here for an interview. And by the way, that being said, we are going to have interviews later on with famous mentalists. We'll see, who I can get. I'm sure I can get some pretty good people. So I've already had a few people already say they would like to be on the show. So I'm very, very happy about that. I know Tristan, who is from Greece, actually a wonderful mentalist, great ideas. He's actually going to be on here someday. I don't know when, this is our inaugural, our debut, as it were. So that being said, there's a lot of really cool things about mentalism. I love it. I absolutely do. I said earlier that we're just like magicians, only we use tools. We use the same tools, just a little differently. And that's absolutely true. We still use playing cards, although I know some people who will not use playing cards because it looks too magic-y. I get that, and I respect that. I do it because of the same reason that Max Maven does. Max Maven, if you don't know, is a very famous mentalist. He actually lives in California, right down the street from the Magic Castle. So he literally walks to work every day, which is kind of cool. Max, Max, he uses cards for the same reason, is that it's something familiar that most people know. If you show if you bring out ESP cards, it looks fake. It looks not real. I like things that people recognize, that people know what it is just by looking at it. Is this a marker? Yeah, it's a marker. It's pretty easy to spot. It's not hard to figure out. Is this a pen? Yeah, it's a pen. It's pretty easy to figure out. Yeah. Is this a phone? Yeah, I mean, all these things. These are all things that shouldn't look like a magic prop. That's my big issue with a lot of magic and mentalism, is that you have this fancy painted box that came from India, land of the buck-toothed snake. No, it's that's what it really comes down to. I know Scott's probably laughing right now, but amazing Jonathan, gotta love him. But no, it shouldn't look like a prop. That's my big problem with most mentalism these days, and magic for that matter. It should be things that are very easy to understand, that you can identify quickly and easily. Thank you, Scott. But yeah, it's and that's really what it comes down to. So what are some of the things that we use? Well, I already told you what a book test is. I told what a spoon bend is. It basically is, you see a regular spoon, it's inspected, and I hold it in my hand thusly, and it literally starts to bend. There's a lot of different ways to make that happen. Am I going to go through all of them? No, I'm not. I'll go through some basic stuff for you. And next week, we're going to have a very interactive effect that Scott and I are putting together just for the audience of this show. So I think you're going to have a lot of fun checking this out. And there's a lot of things that will come into play when it comes to mentalism. I absolutely love it. It's one of the, in my opinion, my humble or not so humble opinion, it is probably the last will I be doing impressions. Not so much with this because of the fact that this is a little more serious and this is a little more more to do with mentalism itself. So probably not. If you want me to do impressions, hit me up when I'm doing my game streams. Honestly, that's probably your best bet, to be honest. Or Julian, you know me. You can contact me. You know how to reach me. I'm not hard to find. You have my business card, and if you don't, your dad does, and you're friends with me on Facebook. Hit me up. I'll be happy to do an impression for you because I love you, buddy. Okay? For those of you who don't know, Julian is a very good friend of mine. His father and I used to work together, and we've been friends for years. And Julian used to come out to my shows every so often and be horrible. No, he was a little obnoxious, but that's okay. Kids do that. It's all good. Which is why I normally don't do kids magic. Although I'm actually changing that. Now that's another subject that I could get into that right now. I keep getting off center. Sorry. I know it's probably driving Scott crazy. So that's a big subject that a lot of people have a problem with, and that is mentalism for kids. Can it be done? Should it be done? Absolutely. Mentalism for children can absolutely be done. Really comes down to ability and age, in my opinion. I know people who have done it for little kids, and that's great. You go right ahead. You do you, okay? It's not what I'm going to do. But this is just me. And I literally just booked 2 kids shows in the past 2 weeks, and I have them coming up very, very, very soon. I have a question here from Rager Play. It says, what or who inspired you to become a mentalist? Oh, that's a great question. I get that question quite a lot, actually. So, who inspired me to become a mentalist? I would say most definitely James the Amazing Randi. I loved Randy. Randy passed away this past year, unfortunately. He was very old. He really was. I loved him to death, though. So when I was on vacation, I was married at the time with 2 beautiful young girls and a beautiful wife, and we went on vacation to Florida. We actually met up with my mom and dad in Cocoa Beach. And on the way there, we decided to stop in at Fort Lauderdale and meet James Randi. And what a fascinating individual he was. Gosh, it still blows my mind. This guy was actually a MacArthur Genius Award winner. Wow. Never went to college a day in his life. And he was a Genius Award winner. Unbelievable. He has actually, gosh. So one thing that a lot of people don't know about Randy, well, first let me explain what happened. So I went down there. I actually contacted him ahead of time, and I said, "Listen, I'm going to take a vacation down your way. I'm a huge fan. I love your work. I love the skepticism. I'm a huge fan. I would love to get to meet you just one time. I think that would be fascinating." And he goes, "Okay, come on down." And so I did, and we had arranged it. I contacted him several times in between those 2 calls, and I actually went to JREF, which is the James Randi Educational Foundation in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I don't think it's there anymore. I think they've actually moved locations to the other coast now. But he actually was the one who did a lot of the testing at the time. And then it fell on to Banachek, who I also know, who is ridiculously good. I love Banachek. I would love to get Banachek on here. He would definitely give us an interview that you would not forget anytime soon. He's actually been on Joe Rogan and things of that nature. Check him out. He's a wonderful guy, Banachek. Make sure you get the Mentalist Banachek and not the TV show Banachek. Those are 2 totally different things. But Randy was... So I met Randy, and now keep in mind, I grew up in Chicago, and we saw lots of magicians. We did. I remember 2 different occasions. One time we went to an actual magic show at a theater as part of a school field trip. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was eating raisins. Those little itty bitty boxes of raisins. But yeah, I remember, and we went to the show, and it was awful. I remember this guy, it was dark, and he was hitting certain spots where he was saying, "I'm going to appear over there," and like, and the lights would kind of go all over the place for a second, and then he'd show up over there, and it was like, just really fast. He's literally running up and down the aisles. I was like, are you kidding me? Seriously? That was your act? You run up and down the aisles? I mean, I get it, it's low budget, but come on. And then another time, I mean, the suspension of disbelief. But then I saw another magician at our school. God, I'm just hearing my friend Nick Lewin tell me about, use the story. He says now Nick was Nick is still alive. I shouldn't say was. He's still active, very active actually. He told me, he says, "You want to get the most business you've ever gotten? Retire. Never fails." But no, he actually tells a great story. It's not real. It's a great little joke actually. And he says, when I was in school, I saw a great magician. It was the great Prozac. He had a terrible act, but he didn't seem to mind. It was a great and he went through his whole thing. But I remember seeing a magician at my school when I was a kid, and he did the whole human water pump thing, where they pump their arm like this, and water comes out the other arm, and it's crazy. It was not a very good act. And kids magic is hard. It really is. But Randy actually, I saw some bad acts over the years, and I wasn't easily fooled. Plus, when I was probably about 9 or 10, I got my first trick deck. I got a Svengali deck, and I loved that thing. I played with that constantly. Okay, so I see Heather was asking, what was the first trick or effect you learned? A Svengali deck. What is a Svengali deck? You can look it up, or I can actually tell you. A Svengali deck is it's a great tool. Basically, what it is every card in a deck, they look like this together. If you take two cards, you can put them together. They should be the same size. A Svengali deck is slightly shorter, just ever so slightly, so that when you flip through the cards, or if you cut the cards, it will always end up on that one. Yes, it's so simple yet a brilliant trick. Absolutely well said, Scott. It's probably the most basic trick that anybody gets. Now, fun story, slightly on topic. When I was a kid, I had a Halloween mask of a guy with a mustache and a beard and kind of greenish yellowish face and things like that. And I played with that thing for years and years and years and years and years. When I was a kid, we didn't really have so many rubber masks, but we had a ton of plastic masks for kids. Couldn't breathe with those things and worth a damn. But seriously, it was this mask, and I didn't know what it was. And I remember I was probably about 9 or 10. And I remember asking my mom, I said, what is this anyway? I've had it for as long as I can remember, but who is it? Who's it supposed to be? And she said, it's Svengali. And I was like, okay, what is Svengali? And she didn't really know. She didn't really explain it to me. But then I got older, and I learned what a Svengali deck was, and I was like, well, that's kind of curious, isn't it? She swears that magic is in my blood. My dad can't pull up a magic trick to save his life. Neither can my mom. I had a great uncle who could do magic pretty well. He could do card tricks and things like that, but basically what you could do is you can cut the cards, and what they do is the short card, I think it is, or is it the long card? I can't remember. One of them, I think it's the long card. The long cards are all the same. And when you cut to that point, it'll be all the ace of spades, no matter where you cut it. High, low, it doesn't matter. Because you'll always end up at that. Every other card is your force card, which we will talk about forces another day, trust me. We'll get into all different methods of forcing, trust me. Forcing is a big aspect of this. I'm going to take a quick drink of my coffee, don't mind me. I'm going to try not to bump the microphone. I've been really bad about that, so. Oh, that's good. Okay, so that being, yeah, it's a wonderful trick, and that was the first thing I ever learned how to do. And people couldn't figure out how I did it. They had no clue, which was fine with me. I just knew that it worked, I didn't understand the principle that well, but I understand how it worked to the point where I could reset it if I needed to. That was about it. So back to Randy. So when I met Randy finally. I was in my 30s at that point, and I knew he was a successful magician or anything, but I knew him more for the mentalism and or escape acts, because he was known for doing escape acts. That was his bread and butter for years. He was actually on an episode of Happy Days. I believe it was called The Magic Show. And he had to teach Fonzie how. Actually, he didn't teach Fonzie, but he had a sip of alcohol and he couldn't perform. And Fonzie had to perform the trick. He did the famous milk can escape. And Randy actually told me about how he actually sat down with Henry Winkler and taught him how to perform the milk can escape. And he actually did it successfully. He actually got really good at it. So just kind of an interesting, like I said, a very interesting fellow. But when I met him, he had done a magic trick for the kids. And I was just tickled. I absolutely was tickled. And I filmed it. And I didn't know how it was done. I had no clue. I was absolutely fooled. And I loved it. Because I was a pretty skeptical person. That's why I liked Randy so much. But when I saw this, it absolutely floored me. I couldn't figure out how it was done. How is this man fooling me with a deck of cards? It was a great trick. The kids loved it. They were so fascinated by it. They were like, I want to learn magic. I want to learn magic. I want to learn magic. So as soon as we got back home from our vacation, which was a wonderful vacation, we got back home, and I told my wife at the time, I said, I'm going to get them a book. I'm going to get them a magic book. And I did. And next week we'll talk a little bit about books and learning and things of that nature a little bit. I think that's gonna be next week's lesson. We'll talk about books and learning and how to learn magic and what are some of the good resources and things of that nature and what I've used and things of that nature and what to look for. Which of course I can shamelessly promote my book, which isn't out yet. But soon. Yeah, so what I ended up doing was I bought this book and I learned how to do a card trick out of it. I couldn't shuffle. I was terrible. My mom and dad, no lie, they actually had bought me one of those automatic card shufflers because I was so bad at shuffling cards. That's why they bought it for me. In retrospect, that's pretty funny. But no, they so I learned a card trick, and I showed the kids, and they were like, "Wow, that's amazing! I want to learn." And they looked through the book for about, they were absolutely just engrossed, absolutely fascinated, I should say, fascinated for probably about, I don't know, 2 minutes. And that was it. So then I learned, I was like, and then I learned another one, and I'd show them, and they would be the same way, and the same thing would happen. And we did this like 3 or 4 times, and I was just like, you know what, they're never going to get into this. But you know what, I'm having fun learning. And so I started learning, and I started getting into different kinds of magic. I didn't care about sponge balls or anything like that. Card tricks were a little overdone, but I still enjoyed them. I learned from Randy how they could be very impactful. And I certainly wasn't going to do fire magic because I'm clumsy. No, I would set a place on fire, if not myself, if not just have burns all over my hands. I know me. No way I'm going to do fire magic. Kids magic, not really my cup of tea. Kids are grabby. My very first show that I ever did was my first public show. Let me rephrase that. My first public show that I ever did was at a thing called Kids Fest in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I'm going to say this is probably 2007, maybe 2000, yeah, probably 2007, probably around there. And I did a 45-minute show. Many people had a good time. Most of the crowd left after about 20 minutes because of the fact that it was more mental, more than anything else. They didn't get it. They weren't digging it. They weren't. When I pulled out a phone book at one point for a phone book trick, they thought for sure I was going to rip it in half. You know, it's like, no, it's not the kind of thing that I do. But, you know, but you live and learn. And that being said, that's what really got me into it. I actually asked Randy. I said, what should I get into? And he says, get into mentalism. And I said, what is mentalism? And he says, like mind magic. It looks like reading minds. And he says, get a hold of Banachek. He will teach you. And as luck would have it, gosh, it was probably less than a year later. It was probably like just a few months later. The local magic club that I had gotten involved with actually had Banachek as a guest speaker, and he did a lecture. And they didn't care a whole lot for me. I'm this new kid, not really a kid. There were people way younger than me, but most of them were way older than me. They actually started getting into. They weren't really big on mentalism. They were like, well, you have to be careful of mentalism because of the fact that you could inadvertently start a new religion. So which there is some validity to that. So that you have to be careful. So I started learning mentalism, and that's how I got started into this, and I never looked back. I absolutely loved it. There have been a few. Now I do meld a little bit of certain aspects of magic and mentalism. For example, occasionally, if I'm feeling froggy, I will actually do an escape act in honor of Randy. I have an escape act where I have a couple people tie me up to a chair, and I have to get out in way less time than they tied me up in. That's my goal. It's not a matter of if I can get out; it's how fast I can get out. And it's actually pretty funny. That brings out a lot of comedy in my show too. So, all right, looks like we got a couple questions here. Ethics question: how do you present your act as to not create a false sense of having powers? This is a really, really good question, and I see that Julian kind of said, I was just wondering the same thing. So there's a long-running debate when it comes to magic and specifically mentalists. And the debate is when it comes to what we call disclaimers. Okay? Should you say something? Should you not? There are a lot of different schools of thought because, the one that I hear the most often, I don't want to do a disclaimer. Who was it? Was it Bob? Bob Cassidy? Yeah, I think it was Bob Cassidy. He was very vague. Yeah, it was Bob Cassidy. I was just thinking about that. He was very, very vague. Bob Cassidy was one of my heroes, minus substance abuse. He was wonderful, wonderful man. He passed away a few years ago, and I actually got to know him a little bit before he passed. We actually exchanged emails several times, and very, very forthcoming, very friendly guy. And no, he actually. So Bob had a very unique approach. He said, "I would never have a disclaimer, but what I do is I'm very vague in my description of what I do, or what I can do more accurately." So Max Maven has an approach to his, which I always laughed at, which is, I don't care. Simple. I just don't care. If they think that I have powers, great. If they don't think I have powers, great. I'm not going to say either way. I'm just going to say we're going to do an experiment. We're going to try something, which a lot of us use. The other side of the spectrum is people who care a little too much. Now, me, you already know that I have a perspective when it comes to cynicism and skepticism, where it's I don't want to lie to people. Said the guy who's fooling you. I get it. I get the conundrum. But think of it this way. There are a lot more mentalists who look at it from this perspective, which is, I will not have a disclaimer. I will not claim to, I will claim that I have actual abilities. Why? Because there's an unwritten rule between the audience and the performer that says that this is a show. Nothing more, nothing less. And I don't want to come off as a fake, because what are they paying for? You can't say you're a fake at the beginning of the show and expect to get rebooked. I suppose that's one way to look at it. It's not my way. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it's not my way. Me personally, like I said, I'm a skeptic. I'm a fan of Randy's, who is a fan of Houdini's. And we continue the Houdini code in that I will not lie to my audience. I tell them flat out from the very beginning. When they introduce me, they say, "Ladies and gentlemen, Greg Raven." I come on stage and there's a line that I use. Please do not steal this line. This is my line. And it's very simple. "Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Greg Raven. I am a mentalist." What does that mean? That means that I am a fake, I'm a fraud, and I'm a phony. But I'm good at it. Simple. To the point. It lets them know that I don't have any paranormal ability whatsoever. But I'll make it look real. And good luck figuring it out. If somebody actually had those abilities and could actually bend a spoon just by holding it and watch it fall and using his or her mental acuity or powers or what have you, it wouldn't be anything. It wouldn't be a challenge. But if you get somebody who actually says up front, "I'm a fraud. I've got no powers. I got nothing," and it still makes it look real, that's more intriguing to me. I mean, maybe it's just the pseudo-intellectual in me, but that's how I see it. That's just me. Looks like we got a couple more questions here. LOL. Yet you do, and you do get rebooked. Yes, I do. And Heather says, "I love that." Yes, Heather would, because Heather is an absolute intellectual. She's very, very smart, very intelligent young lady, and she can be a little Vulcan at times. But yeah, and I remember the first time I did a magic trick for her, and I think I did the necklace trick for her. It's just a simple, stupid card trick. And it's a great trick, and she loved it. She absolutely loved it. And she was fascinated, but at the same time, she's like, "Well, I know you're forcing the card on me. I know it doesn't surprise me because I know that you can do it." That's the big thing. So, let's see here. Scott says, "So it boils down to more of the motivations of the performer and how they frame the show." Absolutely. So this is the one thing, as you start to learn mentalism, or if you have any motivation whatsoever when it comes to that, Let's see here. No, I'll get into that question here in a second, Julian, I promise. Um, the one thing that it really comes into when it comes to motivation and mentalism in general and performance as a whole, because you have to remember this is an art form. Am I just doing card tricks? Yeah. Pardon me. Um, Pardon me. Hang on just a second. Sorry. Um, so it is an art form. It has been officially classified, I think by Congress, as an art form, which is wonderful. It's great, and it is. Now, the next time you watch a magician, ask yourself two questions. Are they taking me on a journey through their story, or are they just doing tricks? That's the first thing I want you to ask yourself. The second thing I want you to ask yourself is, how is the presentation? Is it intriguing? Is it something we've seen a billion times before? Or are they doing something unique? That's the kind of thing that I respect. Now, me personally, I know I've done a little bit of name dropping today. Sorry. I apologize, but I've been influenced by some of the greatest. I really have. And I've been fortunate enough in my lifetime to have not only met, but get to know some of the greatest of all time. I got to meet Randy. I got to meet Aldo Colombini. Gosh, there are some great names. My favorite, my absolute favorite, was Eugene Berger. Eugene taught me the power of pausing. Now, first of all, and I love the fact that we have a nice microphone that I can do this with. Scott is, I know, I can't see Scott right now, but I know for a fact that he is smiling from ear to ear because he knows what I'm about to do. Eugene Berger was, and it's exactly what it sounds like. Eugene, hi Taryn, nice to see you. Eugene Berger was one of my all-time favorites. A lot of people say that I have a voice for radio. I say I have a face for radio. Eugene had such a voice, and you actually have me on a good day where my voice can probably do it really well. For some reason, my voice is a little deeper than normal today, so I didn't even smoke yesterday. I'm gonna have a drink tonight, though. I'm gonna have a cocktail tonight for sure. But no, and he had such a voice. I heard somebody once tell me that it was like if Barry White ate an alien. That's the best way you can describe his voice. And I'll get nice and close to the microphone. I'll do this. He'd call you up on the phone. You'd hear, Greg, it's Eugene Berger. And I'm like, of course it is. Who else sounds like that? You know. But he taught me the power of pausing. Slow it down. Why? Because it's important. A magic trick shouldn't be, okay, let me rephrase that. A magic effect, there's a difference between a trick and an effect. An effect actually takes you somewhere. It tells a little bit of a narrative. A little. A trick is more like a stunt. You could take out a whole room, as Eugene would say. He'd say, you could take out a whole room with balancing a ladder or a chair on your chin. But if you do something that tells a story, that's a whole different ballgame. So, and I take the pauses very seriously. I think it's important. Now, unfortunately, I'm from Chicago, well, at least Chicago area, and we talk fast most of the time. But then what did I do? I moved down to Texas, and they talk very slowly there. I've got some great friends in Texas. But yeah, so, but speaking of moving, I did move here to Kissimmee. And I love it here. I absolutely do. I'm still kind of getting to know the area. I'm getting better little by little. And Julian asked me, he says, so now that you moved to a new place, are you finding it harder to book gigs? On the contrary, I haven't even tried to get gigs, and I already got 3. So later on this afternoon, I'm actually going to update everything on my website, and I'm going to do some other things and update everything on like Gig Salad and all those. So yeah, I booked 3 shows. One of them this morning, literally just a little while ago. So yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that. Yeah, and actually I went out to a comedy show last night, and I got to go see my buddy Eddie, and I got to see some great performers last night. And when I saw them, Eddie was like, God, I missed you. I forgot how good you were. I cannot wait to get you back on. Well, and the thing is that when COVID hit, before COVID, I should say, I was actually doing a show every month. It wasn't much, didn't pay a whole lot. It was at an assisted living facility in St. Petersburg. And I just enjoyed doing it because they loved it. And it kept me in practice, you know? But then COVID hit. And I have not had a public, well, even a private show. I haven't had a real show in over a year. Because I went home March 11th last year. So the last show I did, last public show that I did, last real show I did was probably back in February of last year. So it's been a while. Do I still practice? Yeah. Once in a blue moon, we'll have people over here, and I'll perform for them. I'll go out to a bar once in a blue moon. Well, last night I went out to watch some comedy, and I did a couple little things here and there. That was fun. I'm still active. I just don't do it as much, you know. Occasionally I'll go out to a cigar bar and I'll still perform. So, yeah. So COVID hit a lot of people hard, but it's moving forward, which is wonderful. And it's nice to see that people are starting to get it back into it. I couldn't believe that I've actually booked 3 shows. 2 of them, like I said, were kids shows. Now, getting back into I didn't look at this. Do you believe mentalism is looked down in the performing arts, or more specifically the magic community? That's a great question. That's a really good question. So there's 2 schools of thought. Well, I'm going to rephrase that. For a long time, magicians and mentalists, they butted heads. They absolutely just did not get along. Magicians always looked at mentalism as too intellectual. It's not commercial enough. It's not visual enough. It should be something visual that everybody can see way back in the upper rows, in the nosebleed seats. Mentalists have been known to see magic as a little more juvenile. The thing is that we're in the same community. We use the same tools, just different presentations. Presentation is what it all comes down to. Absolutely. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. as far as other talents, dancers, actors, singers, how do they look at magic? They look at it as something trivial. Although I can tell a great story. Okay, so this was, and I can tell you two little quick. I keep getting off center. I'm gonna have to put like blocks behind my chair so I don't move around so much. So last night, like I said, I went to a comedy show. Great show. Had some great performers. One of them was a playwright, and wow, really well written stuff. Seriously, and it was so fun. And the funny part was when they were all done, my friend Eddie told everybody about what I do. And of course, everybody wanted to see something. All the performers. These are the people who were up on stage, sweating, doing their act. A couple of them bombing horribly. Well, one of them bombing horribly. And then, the rest of them doing very, very well and having a lot of fun. And at the end of the show, I was the one entertaining them and making them laugh. And what a great feeling that is. Now, along those lines, and and it was funny because there's one very nice young lady named Morgan, and she was a great comedian. I was really impressed. She was so funny. Oh my gosh, really, really funny lady. And she's actually going to be out at Bloodhound Brew again soon, and I look forward to seeing her again. She was very, very good. And she actually, I showed her a trick, an effect. Rephrase that. I showed her an effect, and it was a necklace trick. I love this one. It's such a good effect, and she loved it. She absolutely went crazy for it. But the funny part was when I did it, when I was done, I should say, she was just in awe. Her jaw just dropped. And then she said to me, she says, I got to tell you, that was much better than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be way worse. And I get that. Why? Why do people look at magic and mentalism as being so bad? Because there's so many bad magicians out there. In writing my book, I'm not going to name the book right now, but it will be, I'm hoping to have it published here not too long. And when I get it published, you'll know about it. But I kind of talk about that, where every idiot with a deck of cards thinks he's a magician. It's not accurate. And it's unfortunate. There's really, really bad magic in the world, and I'm sorry to report it's absolutely true. So that being said, I actually had a really funny encounter when I was performing at that assisted living facility that I mentioned earlier. There was this nurse who was there, very big guy. He was really funny, nice guy, but he'd try to mess with me every time I would perform. And he actually got asked by management not to be there because they felt that he was ruining everything for everybody else. And so I simply did this. I sat down with him one day and I said, I tell you what I'm going to do. I am going to teach you a magic trick. Very simple. One of the easiest magic tricks that I know how to do. I'm going to teach you to do it. And next time I come back, I want you to try. I'm going to give you a whole month. And when I come back, I want you to see if you can do it for me. And he said, okay. And he came back the next month. Well, I came back the next month. And he says, wow, that was really hard. I don't know how you do that. And it wasn't, and I'll be the first to tell you, I have terrible dexterity in my hands. I am not a knuckle-busting, sleight-of-hand master by any stretch of the imagination. No. But And this was not a difficult trick to learn, but it's the presentation. It's making it seem impactful, plus doing the method. That's where it really gets difficult. And this guy, after I showed him how to do one trick, he had the utmost respect for me. And he said, wow, I don't know how you do a full hour show and put up with idiots like me. And you never mess with me again. So, do we get hecklers and things like that? Oh, sure. I've heard arguments where if you're doing it right, you won't get a heckler. I don't get many hecklers. Once in a while, you'll get some idiot who wants to be funny. They want to be the star of the show. And then I'll make them the star of the show for a minute. And then it's done. But it doesn't happen often. So that's where all that comes in. So let's talk about mentalism for kids for a second. So I was starting to get into that tangent. I'd like to pursue that just a little bit further. So how do you make that work for mentalism for children? So a lot of what I do involves writing something down or looking at a book from across the room. Well, if they can't read, that's a problem. So how do you get around that? Well, you simplify things. I can still have them draw something. I can still have them name a number. I can still have them pick a color. There's lots of different ways around it. You just have to kind of think outside the box a little bit. And I remember for years I would not do, after I did that kids show, that kids fest, so bad. And I was like, I don't ever want to do mentalism for kids ever again, because it just was a nightmare. And I couldn't do half of what I like to do because I didn't think of it that way, you know? And probably my last year in Michigan, 2011, I guess it was. It was probably the year before that, 2010. I did a kids show. I did a Cub Scouts blue and gold dinner. And I'll tell you, I had a blast. I had an absolute blast, and they loved it. I was able to do a book test with their scout manual, which they loved. Oh my gosh, did they love that. They had so much fun. And they were talking about, I actually got a thank you letter later on from them, which I thought was just the sweetest thing ever. And I haven't done a kids show since. Can I do things for children? Absolutely. So I actually got a call a few weeks ago for a show, and the lady it sounded like a very high paying client too, and I kind of wanted to do it until she said that she wanted, do you do balloon animals? And I was like, no, that's not my gig, sorry, but I have one that's coming up here very shortly, and they have people from ages 4 to like 17. I'm like, I don't know if that's gonna work. I can't do a book test, but you know what? There's gonna be a lot of people there. It's supposed to be like 70, 80 people, and it's like, well, I can make it work. And I told the organizer, I said, this is one of the things about mentalism is it's a load of a challenge, and I don't think the little ones are really going to understand what's going on. I'm not pulling a rabbit out of a hat. I'm not doing that kind of thing, and I don't think they're going to really dig it. And she says it's not a big deal, honestly. This is more for the parents. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I'll still do it kid friendly, Nothing that I do is not kid friendly. It's just that I want to do it in such a way where it appeals to more people than I know what to do with. So one of the best things that I do when it comes to kids magic is I know how to make it simple. That's important. That really is important. So what I've done is actually I've taken a few of my effects and I've just brought them down just a touch, just a little bit. Like one of the effects, we're going to try to do this next week actually. I have a poker chip effect that I love to do. It's a great trick. It's very simple and it's very to the point. It's very powerful. And Scott and I have actually worked out a way to try to do this virtually this way. And we'll have some fun with that. But what I've done is I've actually done, instead of using poker chips, I've done something larger, and I've used frisbees. That way everybody can see it, and it still looks impressive. So let's see here. Heather says, do you prefer to do close-up, stage, or walk-around performing, and are there any limitations within those for mentalists? That is a great question, Heather. That's a good question. That's a really good question, actually. I think personally, I prefer stage. Simply because of the fact that you reach more people that way. And everybody looks at you all at the same time. You have all these eyes staring at you at one time. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. It doesn't bother me at all. You have people on, to the sides of you a little bit, but they're all basically this way, which is fine. But they're all looking from all different perspectives, from all different mindsets. And when they start getting into that, that's when things get fun, because they all are seeing the same thing. And that's what I want them to see. I think it reaches more people, and I know how to... There are some great mentalism effects out there that are more suited for close-up. There are ways to make certain ones larger. That can be tricky, though, to be honest with you. But I prefer stage just because it's more fun for me. And it doesn't take as much work, honestly. But I love close-up, too. I love strolling. I'm not a huge fan of strolling. I'm really not. Walking up to a table of strangers and just saying, hey, I'm going to perform a trick for you. Hey, how you doing? I'm the goofy guy with the crazy hair. It's not my favorite. Because I feel that I have to do an explanation. It's just how I am. I was working a yacht club a while ago. Oh gosh, it's been a few years now. But I was doing a yacht club, and they wanted me every other month, and they had this big to-do that they would always have me out for. And I was there every month, every other month for a year. I was doing that. And I had a lot of fun, and I got really good at it near the end. But it was approaching the table because they're eating. They're friends. They're having conversations. They're having, it's difficult to approach a table when they're engrossed in their conversation or they're stuffing their faces, and that can be really difficult for some people, myself included. Did I get better at it? Yeah, I did. I found that I would walk up to every table at the very beginning and introduce myself. Hi, my name is Greg Raven. I am tonight's entertainment. I'm not just some, charlatan who just walked in off the street to harass you. I'm just going to tell you right now, they are actually paying me to actually be here. So please don't call the police. Whatever it may be that I said, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I had ways around it that made them laugh. And when I came back around, they looked forward to seeing me. So it helped a lot. Maybe it's just because I'm from the Midwest and I don't want to bother anybody. I don't know, but that's just how I am. Close-up, I love doing close-up. I absolutely love doing close-up. It's a lot of fun. Um, Max Maven, who we mentioned earlier, actually gave me one piece of advice. Well, two pieces of advice ever. I don't really know the guy, but I've exchanged emails with him a couple of times, and these are the two pieces of advice that he gave me. Number one, I asked him, I said, any tips for performing? I have my first show coming up here soon, and I am just, you're the master. Anything you can impart would be most welcome. And as luck would have it, I actually got a response literally 10 minutes before I left for my very first show. And the advice was this: don't screw it up. No. He actually said, forget the audience. It's you and your volunteer. Everything else fades away. Make it between you two. And when you do that, their reaction will help sell it even stronger. Great advice. Great advice. And I still believe that today. I still believe that even when I'm doing what I'm doing right now. That's why I'm looking dead in the camera. I'm trying not to look away at all. There's all kinds of little flashing things, and ooh, look, but I'm focusing on my presentation and when I'm speaking to you, no matter who you may be, no matter how old you may be, no matter how young you may be, no matter what your background is. It's all about making it personal. If that makes sense, I'm hoping that it does. But I love doing close-up. I really do. It's fun. And if you do it right, it can be really strong. Oh, I didn't tell you the other thing he said. The other thing he said is, I asked him, I said, what is your opinion in comedy regarding mentalism? And he had a really good analogy. He says, I think it's important. It is like if you were a painter and you didn't have the color purple. You can still work with it, but you should still have it. So that was his advice. Those are the two bits of advice, and I still value them. I do. I think it's kind of cool. It's very important. I mean, granted, you could take blue and red and make purple, but you know. So anyway, that being said, those were the two lessons I received from him, and that was kind of cool. So the other thing that you will learn as you start to meet more magicians is that some of them are not forthcoming when it comes to information. There have been magicians over the years who were exceedingly forthcoming. So I'm never going to ask, how did you do that? And it's not because I know, because I may not know. I may not know their exact method. I'm not going to ask how they did it if I don't know. I'll try to reverse engineer it. That's what magicians and mentalists do. We go backwards. So we need to accomplish this goal. How do we get to that point? You know, we think about it backwards. It's very helpful in a lot of things. I'm also a critical thinker, which kind of plays into that too. So when I started talking to Banachek, wow, I would never, like I said, I'd never ask how you did it. I would simply ask, can you tell me the book that may get me the premise behind this? Because I like to do my own research. I want to learn. And he would tell me. He'd say, okay, you want to look at this book, you want to look at this book, you want to look at this book, you want to look at this, you know, and he'd name off all these things. Every time I talk to Banachek, I have learned to have a piece of pen and paper handy, because he always imparts so much wisdom and so much information that I'm never going to remember half of it. Same way with Jay Sankey. Jay Sankey is the same way. Very, very friendly. He will happily sell you anything that he can sell you. And he's very, very intelligent guy. Richard Osterland, same way. I love Richard. I love Richard. Richard is such a fascinating individual, and he'd be the first to say, okay, well, you want to look at this. This was originally written up in blah blah blah, the Jinx, things like that. And then we'd start getting into how to accomplish those things and think of it backwards. Luca Volpe, another one. He'd be the first to help you out if you got stuck on something. Yeah. And then conversely, you get some who are just obnoxious. They don't want to give you anything because they look at everyone as a threat. Everyone is a competitor. I feel like I'm about to cut a promo here. I kind of feel how this whole thing has gone, actually, now that I think about it. Kayfabe. Anyway, well, let's look at, I see Scott has a question here. What's more difficult, performing for an audience or performing for other magicians or mentalists? Ooh. Personally, it's harder for me to perform for other mentalists and magicians because I automatically assume that they know exactly what I do. And I know that sounds funny, but it's true. I figure if an idiot like me can look in a book and learn a method, or at least a premise behind a method, then why don't they already know this too? And I automatically assume that they know exactly how I'm doing this, and I'm not going to fool a single one of them. And yet I do. Yeah. Is it my goal? Yeah, kinda. But is it the forefront of my thinking? No, it's not. When I create something or at least try to alter something to my own personal tastes, I don't look at it as this is going to be a magician fooler. No, that's not how I look at it. I look at it as how will a lay person who doesn't know a thing about magic, how will they see this? Occasionally, an effect will come along where the method is actually more interesting than the trick itself. And those are kind of cool, but honestly, it's more to do with, again, its presentation. How can I make this... How can I do this the easiest way while still making it fascinating for the audience? Why do I want to do the easiest way? That way I can focus more on my presentation. I can tell a joke. I can do an impression, whatever it may be. For those of you who don't know, and I know Julian's going to love this if he's still on here. I don't think he is, but I do a lot of impressions. I like to throw them in my show. I knew a guy when I was in Michigan who was an impressionist and a magician, and he was great. And he would actually do a magic trick as former presidents. It was actually really, really funny. Yeah, he was really, really good. I'm more known for doing like Muppets and Family Guy characters and things of that nature. Occasionally I'll do an actual celebrity, things like that. With this voice, I kind of, not so much in the impression department as I used to be. So Yeah, I suppose. I mean, I just learned the other day I could do a decent Michael Caine. But I've been known more to do like Fozzie Bear, waka waka waka, things like that, But I'll throw that in the show just to kind of throw 'em off. So yeah, or Professor Farnsworth, good news, everyone, But to answer your question, yes, I when I look at an effect, it's more to do with how the audience is going to see it. So I would much rather focus on a regular audience, not magicians or mentalists, because I assume that most people in the audience don't know anything about how magic or mentalists really do their thing. Like I said, most people these days, they don't even know what a mentalist is. They have no clue. Oh, I love that show. That's not how this works. So yeah, so that's really what it comes down to, and I love doing it. I really do. It's one of the few passions that I have. I have a few passions: barbecue, gaming, and bad movies, riff tracks. Yeah, so it's I love that kind of thing. So anyway, well, I don't see any more questions. Let's see what else we can. So let's talk about the kids thing again, just briefly. Oh, I do have if you could interview anyone in magic and mentalism, who would it be? There's a few. And these are people that I'm going to actively try to get on here, seriously, because the wisdom that they can impart is going to be far beyond my own. So Banachek would be a great person to have. Jay Sankey would be a wonderful person to have. Tristan would be a wonderful person. Paul Draper. Oh, I love Paul. Paul was working for Disney there for a while, and until the pandemic. Now he's doing like virtual shows like constantly. He lives in Salt Lake City, Utah. Wonderful man, and what a voice on that guy. Wow, he can sing. He's an anthropologist. He's so talented and so intelligent. And I got to meet him at the at Wizards here in Orlando. So it was very cool to see him. I look forward. I'm hoping that Wizards opens back up eventually, but not hold my breath. But yeah, so it was very cool to meet him. Nick Lewin would be a good one. He doesn't do that much with mentalism, but he's still a fascinating individual. So the funny part about Nick Lewin, Lewin. Nick is so funny. He really is. He's very quick, very topical. He's actually taught me a few things about comedy when it comes to what we do. And I never really had to learn about comedic timing, but I've learned just by watching other people, because I kind of am of the school of thought when it comes to comedy of Craig Ferguson. A little self-deprecating, a little naughty, very flirtatious, but not overly creepy. Maybe a little creepy, but not terribly creepy. Okay, maybe a little more than no, but no, it's more about being, just being funny and still doing what I do. I don't want to be slapstick. I don't want to, I don't do a whole lot of physical comedy, but it is important. Actually, I was just talking to Heather about this not that long ago, about the power of mugging, making a face. Not, nothing like that. It's more about how do I convey a thought without actually saying something. I'm very expressive. I have a very expressive, terrible poker face. Again, face for radio. But it's more to do with, Heather said something to me the other day. I'm not gonna say what it was, but it was kind of funny, and so I was just kind of taking it as being naughty, and I was kind of like, okay, 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 and I didn't say a word, and she was like, oh, you're such a, but it's true. It's more to do with how you react. Okay, so I have been studying a lot with philosophy and psychology and things of that nature. I read a lot, not as much as I'd like to, but I do read a bit. My ex-girlfriend, her father was a psychologist. Wonderful man, loved him to death. And he taught me about Stoicism. And I love Stoicism. And what is Stoicism? Well, it's the fact that you cannot control the factors of the day. You cannot control what happens. You can't control the price of gas. You can't control what your politicians do. You cannot control what the weather's going to be like. You can't control how this person treated you. But what you can control is how you react to it. Now that appeals to me. If somebody calls me a jerk, or worse, usually worse, how do I react? Do I lash out at them? Do I call them something nastier? Because Lord knows I probably can. No. It's better not to. Why would I give them the satisfaction of letting them know what I felt? Same thing with mentalism. It's all about the act. One of my favorite theories of magic was all about giving an audience member the power briefly. I've always been fascinated with that premise. But yeah, we'll get into that another day. But who else would I want to interview? Definitely Nick. Nick is wonderful. I love Nick. He's hysterical. We'd have to probably allot at least 3 hours just for him to get through 2 sentences, because he does speak a little slowly. His nickname is Tex. He was born in England. Yeah, put those two together. Yeah. Nick will tell you, he'd say, hello, Greg. It's Nick. How are you today? I'm good, Nick. How are you? Oh, I'm just fine. Everything's good over here. We're going to go out. I was going to have a cigar later on today. He's very deliberate in what he says. He thinks about it before it comes out. He doesn't really stammer. He doesn't go, He thinks about it very carefully before he says any syllable. So here's this very, 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 very British man who now lives in Texas. And he has embraced the Texan culture and life. He loves it. He loves country music. He's actually met Willie Nelson. He goes to Austin City Limits. He loves Texas. He's absolutely, and so they call him Tex. It's kind of funny. So even his wife Susan, she's like, "Oh yeah, Tex is out in the yard today." Okay. So yeah. I'm trying to think who else would I interview. I think Dan Harlan would be a good interview. Just because, yes, Susan, yes. But no, Dan Harlan would be a great one to interview. There's actually a, I tell you who I would like to interview. I would like to interview the Shocker. The Shocker is a magician. He's actually been on Fool Us. He's very, very funny, and he's a big pro wrestling fan. And so he comes out in a cape and a mask, and he's got, and he's got this whole wrestling motif to him. And I bet you he would be a really interesting interview. I just saw him Fool Us. He's the wrestling. Yes. I think that would be really fun to, So I'm not going to say a pet peeve. I'm going to say it's something that I don't personally agree with. And that is character within magic or mentalism. There are too many of them that are out there that I've seen that are just really, really bad characters. I saw one earlier today. God, he called himself like Big Daddy Cool Bill the Bamboozleizer or something like that. It was so bad. I knew a guy who was an actual dentist who would do his act from a medical standpoint. You don't want that kind of thing for the most part, because then you have to commit to it. And if you break character, in wrestling parlance, it's kayfabe. If you break kayfabe, no. I would much rather be myself. I don't want to remember what this character is, or who he is, or what he's done, or anything like that. Most of us would prefer to just be an extension of ourselves. Just a more pronounced version of what we are every day, which is exactly what you see here. When you talk to me just like this, it's just like if you talk to me in the living room. It's the exact same way. If you see me on the street, I'm going to answer the exact same way. If you ask me to do a trick, I'm going to do the exact same way. So yeah, those kind of things are important in my own humble opinion. So, but you know what? I want to know from you people. I want to know what you want me to cover. I've got a few things in mind that I wanna explore down the road. We'll talk about a little bit of method, certainly. We'll talk about some books. Next time we're going to talk about books, learning resources. We'll call it that. But basic mentalism is. It looks like I'm highly intuitive. It looks like I can read minds. I can predict the future. I have control over someone to a certain degree. I can make them think something. I can influence their decisions. Take your pick. They're all kind of intertwined in such a way. Eugene loved mentalism to an extent. He always said, if you could really predict the future, then why am I working the blue and gold dinner for the Cub Scouts Troop 407? Why wouldn't I be working, or at the very least winning the lottery and relaxing on an island somewhere? He would say that's a hard sell. That's really that's heavy. It's hard to do. And I agree with that to a certain extent. I do. Which, again, falls into disclaimers. Why do we have a disclaimer? I'm not going to claim that I actually have supernatural abilities, that I can actually predict the future. I think it's more fun to have a little bit of a challenge, a little more fun with the audience. And, be tongue-in-cheek and say, yeah, I can read minds, and then prove it. And then they kind of freak out and you go, yeah, but I'm a fraud, And they kind of go, and you'd be amazed how many people will come up to you after the show and they'll say, no, you're the real deal. I know this. You actually are psychic. Now, of course, what am I thinking of at that point? I'm thinking of Monty Python and the Life of Brian. I'm not the Messiah. And of course only a Messiah would say that he's not the Messiah. It's the same kind of deal. And I get that argument all the time. It's annoying. I know they mean well, but pull your head out. Seriously. I can't control how a person thinks, and I never would. But there's just a part of me that just says, you have to be smarter than that. You can't actually believe that somebody has that kind of power over everything. I don't have that kind of ability. It's not realistic. I'm sorry. So those kind of things really come into play, and I always have at least one person comes up to me after the show and they say, wow, you're really good. But I don't believe you. I think you really do have powers. And I said, no, I really, 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 really don't. Well, you can say that, but and it's like, so. And the one thing that you're going to learn if you ever get into this more and more is that you're not going to make everybody happy. It's just, the odds are not in your favor. It's just not going to happen. You're going to have a lot of people who are really going to enjoy it, and they're going to love what you do. Are you going to make everybody happy? No, you're not. People are going to go, well, you'd be amazed. So this is kind of this ties in with magic and mentalism, this particular part. Let me get one more quick sip of my coffee here. We only have about 13 minutes left, so. That's good. Love my coffee. Oh, yes. How people react to magic in general. This is a really important lesson that a lot of people, I used to say that one of the best, and I actually go into this in my book a little bit, one of the best sociology lessons you'll ever learn is learn a magic trick. Seriously, learn one card trick and perform it for 100 people. Most people will look at it with some trepidation, because they kind of go, I've seen a card trick. This isn't impressive. A few will be absolutely ecstatic and want to see something else, or they want you to do it again, or what have you. Then you get the people who don't want to see anything. Period. Why? Because there's a myriad of reasons. It may be religious beliefs, because they don't want to do anything with cards. There may be other reasons. There is a large number of people out there who do not want to see magic simply because of the fact that they do not understand how it works. And they know that you're not going to teach them. So those kind of people, now there's a big difference. This is one of the big lessons that I learned in magic. I learned this one early on, thank goodness. There is a huge difference between fooling someone and making someone a fool. Now there's a big difference there. If I do a card trick for you and you enjoy it. Did I fool you? More than likely, yes. Did I make you look stupid because I fooled you? No. But you'd be amazed how many people equate those two together. They don't want to see a magic trick just because they feel like you're belittling them, like you're making them look stupid. No, you've done that on your own just fine, thank you. So that's a big lesson, and that's why a lot of people have a hard time with magic. It can be a little painful for some people, and they don't know how to react. There's a whole psychology behind what we do, and even the audience mindset. And the best thing I can tell you is go out and see a magician. Go out and see a mentalist. Hell, go out and see a play. Live entertainment is so unique and so fun. And when you see it live, you have that electricity. You have that excitement. And you listen to the people around you. What are they thinking? And then watch the entertainer. Now, I'm not a big fan of scripting. I have an outline. I have certain points I'm going to hit every single time. A lot of it is procedural. Okay, you're going to do this now. Okay, now I want you to do this. Okay, go ahead and do this. Go ahead and do this, so we can get through the show. But there are certain lines that I'm going to hit every single show that I'm always going to use. That are hackneyed, old, stupid jokes, but still get a great laugh. And there's certain spots that I'm going to hit. It's kind of like pro wrestling. It's a lot like pro wrestling, actually. When you really get down to it, it really is a lot like pro wrestling. So for those of you who do not know, wrestling, spoiler alert, is, I'm not going to say it's fake, okay? Because the bumps that they take hurt. They are real. Do they try to protect themselves? Yes. Do they know who's going to win in advance? Usually. Do they know certain things they're going to do? Yes. But 90% of the match, they're making it up as they go along. That takes talent. To do it in a certain amount of time, yeah, it takes absolute talent. I just realized I was looking above the camera. That's kind of funny. So anyway, well, we're getting near the end here. We've got about 7 minutes left. I hope that you guys really enjoyed this. I did. I really had a great time. Please feel free to put comments in here, ask questions. We're going to do this every week. At least I'm going to try to do this every week. And eventually, when the time comes, like I said, next week I'm going to have an interactive trick for you. I may even have two. I have an idea for a second one, but we're gonna look at that, and I'm going to show you how you can actually use certain things to do this. The other thing is, ask questions. If there's something you want me to really cover, or you have, even if it's just questions about shows that I've done, because I've done a lot of shows over the years. And I can tell you some great stories, some absolute horror stories too. And I can tell you some really fun stuff that's happened, and things that I've seen, and reactions that I've had, and things like that. And yeah, the good, the bad, the ugly, somewhere in between. Yeah, I'd be happy to go through all that. But yeah, talk to me, and feel free to send me a message on Twitch. Please do. And if you're not on Twitch, then shame on you. So yeah. So anyway, folks. Well, I hope that you had a great time today. I'm gonna end it here. What is the meaning of life, the universe, and everything? 23. So you know the you know. Of course, it's 23. Why not? So yeah, but I hope that you guys had a great day. Please, oh, it is 42. You're right. I forgot. Sorry. Douglas Adams, I am not. Yeah. So anyway, I hope that you had a great day. I hope you had a good time. I hope that this opened your eyes, maybe just a little bit, and we'll get more into it. We'll get into more details next time. Like I said, we'll talk more about some of the books and learning resources and things of that nature. And then later on, we'll get more into methods. We'll get into specifics of how to do certain things. I will shamelessly promote my book once it's actually available, which I'm hoping won't be too long. I'm going to try to get some photography done here very shortly. So, anyway, that's my time. So, I hope you had a great day. Have a great Sunday. Thank you all for coming out and supporting me. And be sure you tell your friends, your enemies. I don't care. Even trollers are fine, just because of the fact that it helps my numbers. So, all right. Well, you have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. This is Greg Raven signing off.